All right. Good morning and welcome to another edition of On the Clock, the Miami Dolphins weekly draft show here on FTSN. I'm Bobby Finstock, joined always by Josh Wingate and Coach Vogel. Good morning, fellas. How you doing?
Great. First weekend post basketball. I'm a little sad. I'm not gonna lie.
how,
Yeah.
how was the season?
Well, I was taking over a program that had struggled mightily over the last 4 years. We didn't win any games, but we improved steadily
There you go. That's all that
through the
matters.
years. We had probably the most exciting half that we've had in a long time. We hit a three at the buzzer of the half to tie it, which I mean we've been in a situation where we've never been close at half. So my girls were crazy excited, and then they kind of pulled away in the second half. But they were excited about how they ended the year. They felt a lot stronger. So now we move on to the old arena football. Carolina
go.
Cobras.
There you go. The
I
Carolina Cobras.
I come from a high school career of I think we might have won 2 or 3 games. So of playing football.
Yeah,
So I get it. Like improvement is all that matters. Our teams were never really good.
yeah,
And now we look back at like our teams then and to what our program is now at my old high school.
yeah.
They just went to the championship. So
Yeah.
just
And
building
the
block.
good thing about this team is that we're really young. So we got a ton of freshmen and sophomores, and like I only had two seniors. So the potential to grow over the next 2 years is going to be pretty awesome.
The bad thing is you don't have a draft to get better.
Yeah, exactly. Which segues into this. Here we go.
Yeah, man. The Kachuk brothers are killing it for Team USA.
Apparently, they
Very
killed
cool.
Canada. There were there enough booing during the national anthem. We gonna whoop some ass.
That's right. There you go. Good morning, Daniel, Damien in the house. Everyone tuning in again, watching On the Clock. Just started weekly draft show on FTSN. Yes, basketball season just ended for us too. It's still going on, for the league, but we
Right.
went to the tournament and we got bounced, but it was exciting. The kids was great. We ended the season 5-2. We should not have lost. I think the referees screwed us, but hey, can't leave it up to the referees.
Yeah.
Can't leave it up to the referees. They're but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
We were supposed to have our conference tournament this coming week, but they say they shortened it into like a top four tournament because of the weather. You're in Tennessee, right, Bobby?
yes, uh-huh.
Are you guys supposed to get any weather?
We did actually. We had some very bad weather last night, and it kind of the atmosphere, the ingredients. I follow this guy, Tennessee Extreme Spot or whatever, but he's awesome. I mean, he has all these gadgets and everything. He always fills you in on X, but the ingredients weren't good enough where it was any kind of like there was some tornado watches, but no warnings.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of rain, and they had like flash flood
Yeah.
warnings up in Davidson. We're in Williamson,
Yeah.
so. But yeah, no, and then next week we're supposed to get snow, so that's
Yeah.
how
Right. Yeah, that's
bipolar
Yes.
the weather is here.
Exactly. It's supposed to snow and
Yeah.
sleet, possibly 8 inches. I was like, what?
So
North Carolina doesn't do 8 inches.
I guess we're going in old man mode right now, talking about the weather. But
We are. Yeah.
my end of January, we got that big snowstorm. We got about 12 inches, and it was so cold after that like I had about 2 inches of like thick ice on my driveway. So I went to
Yeah.
like shovel it, and it like ruined me. I just got a snow shovel, like it didn't work out.
Can I
So-
just say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish
No,
off.
like it was. We got that last snowstorm. We probably got about 8 to 10 inches there, and I was like, do you know what? As soon as it like accumulates,
Yeah.
I'm going out there. I'm shoveling. I'm getting it ready because my wife is a nurse. She has to go to
Yeah.
work the next day.
Essential personnel.
So I wanted to make sure it was clear. I did that, and it was beautiful the next day. Best driveway
in the
around.
neighborhood.
And it was so hot the next day. It just melted, and everyone's driveway looked like mine. And I just put in all that work for nothing.
I thought we were going all the other extra. Every time I keep hearing, and that's probably, it's funny because usually late night when I'm doing a late show, it's a lot worse. But I'm hearing 8 inches, 10 inches, and I was gonna make a joke, and then Josh goes, "Yeah, we had about 10 inches, and all I had was 2 inches." And I'm like, "Okay, well I'm like, okay, well that was very cold." Whoa, but locker room talk. But
There
anyway,
you go.
a lot to talk about overall as we've caught up and talk about the weather. But Daniel and Damien already talking about team needs, and there's a lot to talk
Yeah.
about team needs, especially with the most recent cuts with the Miami Dolphins, and I will fix this up and we'll get rolling here. And they kind of started it with us, but start off with some Dolphin news for this week, and there's plenty. A lot of three starters, basically, really three starters, because Durham Smythe was rotating in and out of there.
Yeah.
Durham Smythe was released. Raheem Mostert cut. And after in not the last year, he was out of the lineup most of the time, but the year before, I mean, he was second in the NFL with touchdowns. He had 21 total touchdowns. How many yards? I don't have the yards in front of me, but I mean, 18 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, he had an unbelievable year, his best year ever, and for his career. But he gets cut, and then Kendall Fuller, the Dolphins' second corner behind Jalen Ramsey, also cut. So Miami now, I think they're about 2 point something million still over the cap. They have to make another move to get cap compliant. But before we just get into what the repercussions and what this could mean, the consequences this can mean for Miami and their needs going into the free agency and to the draft, Coach, just your reaction to these cuts, and which one do you think is the most impactful? Which is the one that rose your eyebrows?
Fuller. I think that was the one that surprised me most, because I thought, I know he was in and out of the lineup with injuries and stuff, but I felt like he was the most impactful. Mostert, it was kind of hard for me to see go, but I felt like, I do feel like it was a good cut, especially since I feel like they've got a lot of depth at the running back position. It just felt like he was kind of the old man on the roster, and then Smythe doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he's a decent tight end, but he's not elite, and I think we need elite depth at the tight end position at some point, and he just wasn't that. So he was probably Fuller was the one I was most surprised with.
All right, Josh. Looking at it, obviously, Fuller was an eyebrow raiser for me. Mozart, I wasn't as surprised, even though I still think he could be a capable piece on the roster. It wasn't a surprise. It looked like they were moving away from him. The Fuller one did surprise me. Durham Smythe did not. They need to go get another tight end, and obviously we've been talking about that in the mock draft process in the war room, and kind of really honing in on those guys. But even though we were talking tight end, does that surprise you at all, or are you with us with Kendall Fuller?
Yeah, I think Kendall Fuller was, like, talent-wise the most surprising one. I think Raheem Mostert kind of surprised me because you didn't get a lot of money back by cutting him.
Yeah.
So you could have just kept him as like that depth piece of a veteran that has done it before for when you do bring in these young guys. But tight end is just, we've talked about this since our first show of the year, especially in a outside zone offense. You need tight ends that can block, and you currently only have one tight end that can block, and that is your starter. Smythe can't, and everyone underneath of him just doesn't block very well. So you need to get more tight ends that can help in that run game, but also, be utilized in the pass game as well. But I would say for me, while Fuller talent-wise was the biggest surprise, I think losing someone, and I believe Raheem Mostert was a good locker room guy too.
Yeah.
So losing that veteran that's good in the locker room that can help these younger guys, I feel like that's kind of a bigger loss than what a lot of people are realizing at the moment.
Yeah, Scotty in the house. Cap, good morning, sir. Great to see you, brother. Scotty, good morning. Scotty says, "Are we going to assume we are going back to a 3 QB roster on the spots on the 53, vet backup and a draft pick? That changes the roster build. Curious about your opinion." Didn't Miami? Well, they allow now, or the NFL allowed that you could have the 3 QBs on the roster and it wouldn't affect. Or on this on the
that's what I thought it was, because of the Oh, it looked like you got a concussion. You got to pull him out of the game, and then they
messes up your thing.
Yeah,
I thought they allowed it now. So, yeah, I think they're going to go with 3. I think that's a fair point. But that's where they're allowed now. Mozart should have been cut last year. I wanted to keep Brooks. Mozart had an 18 touchdown season last year. He wasn't going to get cut.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened between the, last season into that off season and where they went from there.
The offensive line.
That's what happened. That's huge. That's huge. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I don't know. He should not have been cut last year.
No, not at all.
In favor of Brooks. I mean, go look back at what he did last season, and there's no way that would have gone down. Now this offseason, I mean, obviously he's a veteran. It didn't work out. Yes, offensive line, and that's huge, and that's still an issue, and hopefully it will be addressed. And I think we're all open for that. But again, as you start to make a beeline for health and younger players and whatever, especially at the running back position, it looks like. Or more reliability. Raheem Mostert was obvious, but still surprising because what you could do and how he fit into that locker room and under that coaching staff. Cap, I hope you guys realize we have done the big splash signing. We have done the big coach signing. We have done the trading back in the draft. Unfortunately, 2 years in a row, everyone is jumping ship. Yeah, here, Scotty, because the rules switched to be able to carry the third QB on the practice squad and call him up, which is what most teams, including us, did last year.
That's not true. I think it is. The rule is you can have 3 on your active roster, but the third one doesn't count towards your active or towards your 53 roster. But you can call. They can't be there during game day as an active player, but. They can still be on your active roster and not count towards your 52-man roster.
Yeah. That's how I know it to be.
Yeah. So they can be there. They can be not on the practice squad. They can play. They just can't be active on game day until you go down to you lose that one guy.
Yeah.
And then you can pull them up and they can be on game day.
Right.
But then that'll kind of get you 53.
Let me just, Scotty, I don't know why people choose random hills to die on sometimes, but you might not have agreed to have cut him last year, but keep Chris Brooks, who was on the Packers.
I mean,
results show
anyone could do that.
But what results are we talking about? First of all, okay, so let's see where this makes sense. I'm Chris Greer, the GM. God help me. I'm looking at my 18-21 touchdown running back who just had a mega year, who was right behind Christian McCaffrey. And then I have a late round running back, practice squad, whatever you want to call him, running back. I'm gonna go ahead and no, we're gonna keep this guy, and we're gonna cut the guy we just had a monster year, who was elite. He was one of the top running backs, the second top running back in the NFL. We're gonna cut him, and we're gonna keep him. Yeah. And okay, so let's fast forward a year later and let's see who was right. Chris Brooks. 36 carries, 183 yards, and a touchdown. Raheem Mostert, 85 carries, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. What results are we talking about?
To me, it's a little bit like the Giants cutting Saquon or getting rid of Saquon, right? So they cut Saquon, he goes to Philadelphia, has a monster year. Well, if we cut Mostert goes somewhere else, has a monster year for whoever else, and you got Brooks. Back up
it's just it's just crazy. That's a crazy thing. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Your run game in general was down.
Exactly. That's my thing. This is the thing. I don't know what it is sometimes where I liked Brooks. I really like Jalen Wright. Yeah. But it's like people go, oh, we have to have this guy start. He has to be. We're just hoping for that Jay Ajayi type of situation, And it's like, look, can we just let it play out and let's be realistic with our expectations?
Yeah.
He did not have some kind of monster year in Green Bay where it's like, oh, we should have kept him. I said so. No, he didn't. Stop it.
I mean, HN, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right.
Devon Achan. You got it.
Achan. He averaged 53 yards a game last year.
It's offensive line. And again, and Raheem Mostert, though, was in and out of that lineup. Was it injury issues? What was going on there? We don't know. But again, it wasn't because we decided to keep Raheem over Chris Brooks that our running game sucked. I mean, Jalen Wright was going. Everybody was hyping on Jalen Wright. We need to see him. When he went in there, nothing happened.
Yeah. Because the offensive line. But, I mean, if we want a hill to die on, let's die on the fact that we can't draft offensive, or we haven't drafted offensive line. So
Scotty always gets it, man. I mean, he always gets the right conversations going. He got almost had the QB conversation, but no, he went running back, and I was like, that fired me up. I was like, I don't know where we're going with that. I think that's crazy to say that we cut Raheem Mostert last year. I understand this season. After this year, it's like, hey, you know what? It's just not working. We got to move forward. We saw what Devon Achane can do. He can kind of take up that role. We know he can do that. But, you know, now nothing. Mostert had zero impact over the last year. After drafting Wright, why keep Mostert over Brooks?
All right. So Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. I love getting Bobby Riley. Yeah, you're right on the money, bro. But yeah, Tyreek Hill. So appreciate you, Scotty. So he, has been making the rounds, and obviously, with the media, with the Super Bowl, he spoke with Chris Sims, and then with Pro Football Talk, and then he went somewhere else. And he said the same thing that, hey, what he did at the end of the season, he was just fired up. It was all emotion. He would like to come back to he would love to come back to Miami. He apologized to Tua publicly. And then, of course, they ask, but he's I want to come back, but we'll see what happens, and there's reports that Miami is not really, that they're still kind of weighing the odds. There's one report saying, no, they're going to look to try to move him. There's another report saying, no, they might keep him for this season and then move him after the next year. And then I'm trying to remember his name right. Ryan Clark.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill goes on the show on The Pivot, which shout out to The Pivot. It's a great podcast. Those guys kill it. Yeah. Their interviews are awesome. They're raw. They're real. I love that show. I really do. With Channing Crowder and Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor. But he gets on there, and I didn't watch it, but I did see that clip, and he comes out right away trying to call out Ryan Clark and saying, I like you and you, but I have beef with you. You've been talking, my mother's been telling me you've been talking trash and da-da-da. And Ryan Clark said straight to his face, hey, man, I'm not going to tell you something I wouldn't tell you to your face. He goes, well, first off, in paraphrasing, I don't have I'm all about the players. But what you did at the end of the year, being who you are, not just to the Miami Dolphins, but what you are to the NFL, really to us, it's the Miami Dolphins. That's what I gave a damn about.
Right.
Because I can understand after the game saying, I don't know if I should be here. I don't know. I think I made because, the star power and all this. I understand that part. And then having that for sure. Quitting on the team in the middle of a game, that's where that really pissed me off, where I'm like, that bothers me. And that's where I think Ryan Clark was saying, look, dude, you're a leader. And that's where kind of Tyreek kind of bit his tongue. He was like, yeah, you're right. He goes, that's where I'm calling you out on. That's not a leader. What you did was wrong. That's not a good. And I'm happy that the players called him out. And players around the respectable guys who leaders in the NFL and the media. I mean, Ryan Clark, shout out to him for what he's done in his career and what he's done post-career. So let me ask you, Josh, I'll start with you, and then Coach, you could follow right up right after. Where are you going? He could be vocal. It's not about being vocal, DSG. It's about quitting during the game. But Josh, I'll start with you. Do you, if you're the GM of the Miami Dolphins and with Tyreek, would you ride it out? Would you say, well, let's at least get one more year out of this? Or would you say, no, let's try to move this. Let's move on now.
I need to see where the locker room's at with him.
Okay.
If the locker room is disappointed in how he approached that, you got to move on. It's kind of like the Randy Moss situation. Randy Moss left Minnesota, went to Oakland, and didn't even try. Everyone was against Randy Moss at that point. Like, Randy Moss isn't Mossing right now. And then he gets traded away, and then he goes and does his thing. It just might be to that point of the locker room is against this guy. We need to move on. But if the locker room is not against him, it's still Tyreek Hill. You need to keep him. He's not doing what Randy Moss did in Oakland of giving up on every play and not really trying every play. It was a half of a game. He did, unfortunately, not fully, but the Antonio Brown move of basically leaving by halftime. But it's hard to move on from Tyreek when you have a player like Tua who you're trying to continue and trying to get the most out of, and losing a player like Tyreek is going to just bring Tua down. It's like to the equivalent as a Cowboys fan of Dak losing Amari Cooper. His stats went down. We had to go out and find someone to elevate that play and someone to play along him. So I think it's a tough decision. I think Tyreek Hill, if the locker room's behind him, you're going to keep him on that team because it's Tyreek. But if the locker room is against him, you have to move on because that is the core of your team, and no one is going to. I mean, if you don't have a good locker room and you have a cancer in that locker room, as Steve said, you got to move on from that because this team is to a pivotal point right now of if we add a couple pieces, we can compete. But we need a great core in order to do so.
Coach?
Yeah. As far as me as a coach and have had kids quit on you in the middle of the game, it's hard. It's hard for me to want to bring him back. I do see the value in what he brought 2 years ago. But you would think that if he had those feelings in the middle of the game, he probably had them before the game, and something should have been said then. But I mean, you're out there. Jalen Waddle's expecting you to be out there, and you say, "I'm done." Then you're done. Then I don't need you on this team anymore. If we're talking about the Dolphins getting serious and being a franchise, worthy of going to the Super Bowl, this clown show has to stop. And they've got to get people in that are committed to taking the next step. And to me, when you quit on your team in the last game of the year, and I have no issues with moving. I enjoyed Tyreek as a player. When I came down to see the Dolphins play the Giants 2 years ago, I enjoyed it. Like, it was the fun show to be a part of. But we've seen, that the high flying offense doesn't work. We need to build a team that's going to figure out a way to beat Buffalo and beat Kansas City. So how do we construct a team to beat those people? And Tyreek is one person, and that one person, if he's not getting the ball, we got that's to me the thing. If I ever become a head coach in the NFL, my ultimate goal is how do I beat the teams in our division? What's the best setup to compete with the Buffalo Bills, and what's the best way to compete with Kansas City? And
that's a Jason Garrett way of thinking.
Yeah,
all he cared about was beating. I mean, for all everyone hates on Jason Garrett, he dominated his division, and he was constantly in the playoffs. That's the first thing you have to worry about is beating your division, and then once you can do that, you get to the next spot, and you got to continue from there. So, yeah, I agree.
I will say, too, first off, shout out to everyone who's commenting and tuning in right now. You got Steve Malloy of Real Talk, Fins Talk, airs on Tuesday nights here on FTSN. He's in the house. Good morning, Steve. Great to see you. Daniel, Anthony Manzano, DSG, everyone, Cap. Let's see here.
Can I real quick on the Tyreek thing? Are you willing to pay Tyreek $12.7 million to play for someone else?
No, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, I hope it doesn't. My computer doesn't restart. I just got a restart thing on my computer. It's like it has to restart. I'm like, no. Hopefully it's at 2:00. But first off, all the comments, I get it. Again, and I'm with Coach. If it was me, and again, I don't think he was preserving is different. That's a thing you talk with your coach, and you don't go above the team. You work it out with your coach. You say, hey, look, man, if we're at the end of this, if we're not in it, I think I should sit. You know what? We worked it out together. At this point, you're going to sit down. That's different. Saying I'm not going in and leaving your guys high and dry on the field is not what your leader and your highest paid player should do to your team. That rubs me the wrong way. Now, again, Tyreek has said it. Hey, look, I want to come back to the Miami Dolphins, but we have to be more aggressive. We have to do something with this roster. We need to be more competitive. He's kind of putting the onus on the team. I think Daniel's right on the money too. Daniel says, that he's sick of Tyreek Hill with the situation with Tyreek, but Graham McDaniel on the hot seat, he could see Tyreek being brought back. I could see Tyreek no matter how I feel about the situation. I know Miami is a better team with Tyreek than it is without Tyreek. If Tyreek is able to, if the first off the offensive line is better, given your QB time, whether that is Tua or whomever, and you letting Tyreek make a play. I could see Tyreek playing at least one more year here because what Josh just brought up with the cap, playing one more year here because again, McDaniel and Greer are on the hot seat, quote unquote, playing one more year. And then if it all goes to crap, that's when you move on from him. Now I understand the risk of it all. If you don't move him now, the trade value is not going to be as great later. But I don't think with Tyreek Hill, with a player like Tyreek Hill, whatever you're going to get for him. Because everybody's going to – that's a player you go based off potential, unless he gets a complete drop-off. But again, other teams, or even right now, would make a big move for Tyreek. They're probably not going to go first round. Probably get it as high as a second rounder, or maybe as the majority of the picks probably third rounders. And they're not – and they're – because they know, okay, they're looking. They go, okay, Tua's often hurt. Offensive line was trash. Miami struggles. That's why he had a bad year. They're not going to put it on Tyreek. So that's why they'll make a move. Now, unless he completely flatlines the next season, you're still going to get a third round pick or something like that for him. I think he plays it out. If it's me, and I think Josh is on the money with trying to feel out the locker room. But if it's me, I see where the cap is. How does it affect the cap, especially maybe post June 1st? And if I was running the team, I'd say, okay, Tyreek, I appreciate everything you've done. You were a killer last year. This year, it just didn't work out. But the end year is too much for me. We need to move forward. We need a fresh start, But I can understand if Miami keeps him because the team is better with him than it is without him on the field, and it's just what it is. And again, I think Miami could do enough where he could be produce at a better quality than he did this year. I don't know. It sounds like Anthony Manzano. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm defending Tyreek, but I can understand where his frustration is coming from when your starting quarterback can't stay healthy. It affects your production. And again, it's not just the starting quarterback. It's the offensive line. It's the whole roster. It's a whole thing. It is the starting quarterback. Obviously, you need your guy to be healthy. And I think Miami, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel both said that Chris Greer said that at the press conference at the end of the year. But even Dan Marino said that Tua has to stay healthy. We have to find a way to keep him healthy. And that's not great talk coming from your organization about your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
That is not great talk. That everything that comes out of your mouth is, we just have to keep him healthy. Look, you could have 30, 40, $20 million offensive linemen each position. You're paying $20 million out. But if he decides to run because the line breaks up, because it doesn't matter how great players are, sometimes the line will fall apart. Your quarterback has to extend a play. He has to make a play. And if he's going to go running out and then get smashed, and every time he gets smashed, you got to go, oh, crap. And then he's out. Your season's effed at that point. Most teams are, but at that point, that's why you go and get a decent backup. And that's what Miami needs to do this offseason. Just as important as the offensive line, they got to get a decent back, because you could pay as many offensive linemen as you want or draft as many offensive linemen as you want. One hit could be it for Tua, and that's not healthy. Yeah. So, Scotty, no restructures. Yeah. I think I would not be surprised if that's the case though, with Bradley Chubb.
I think the pick last year was and we talked about this last year. Bradley Chubb can't stay healthy. We're getting to a point where we can release Chubb next year and get rid of that contract. We're taking this guy if he excels, and same happens with Chubb and Chubb doesn't produce, we're moving on from him. I think Chubb is gone because you do have that safety piece, and it was a beautiful move by the team. Everyone didn't like the pick last year, but it was Greer gets all the credit in the world of, hey, we're going to get this pass rusher that can then take over for Chubb. Chubb is not producing. We're moving on from him. But if he does produce, okay, now we have a spoil of riches. We then move on and look at what's his name? Is it Phillips?
Jalen Phillips, yeah.
Jalen Phillips. We then look at him and say, okay, well, he's the next guy that's not healthy. What are we doing with this contract? Because he has a big contract coming up. So I think Greer gets a lot of hate. I hate on Greer a lot, but The draft pick last year was just such a beautiful move in the building of this roster and contracts coming up and not getting to a point where, I mean, he has been in recent years of, I have to do this. No, it's okay. Now I can sit back and say, well, what do we want to do? You can restructure here. You can play for less here if you like it here, or sorry, we're moving on. Again, Phillips, they're not pushed to say, I have to do this. And they can then say, okay, well, we love you here. You're a great part of this community, but this is what we're willing to offer you. If you don't take it, I hope you find something more somewhere else, but we're always here for you. So
Yeah.
Greer did that very well.
No, and shout out. That's a looking ahead move, right? I mean, and again, Miami could try to do that. And I understand. I understand. First off, I get this, Scotty. I understand that you only restructure guys who you plan on staying more than 1 year. You restructure to a player is pushing it cap wise. You don't do that for a 29-year-old guy coming off his second ACL tear. And then Manzano says blaming the offensive line for injuries to Tua is complete bull crap. This is just his fan base trying to defend him. It's making a play. It's making him place that's not necessary that gets him injured. First off, I understand that, and that's my point with the offensive line talk. It's not wrong either. The thing is Tua's past the point of offense. Yes, you got to do your best to protect him. You invest in the offensive line, build the best offensive line you can, and then this is, I think, where Miami's going. Not saying it's right, but it's saying, okay, and then evaluate him, which there's already a lot of us who've evaluated, and we know where he's good, we know he's not, whatever. Here's the issue. Again, you can spend all the offensive line and draft capital you want on it, the cap and draft capital you want on it. One hit is enough. Everyone's going to wince. Everyone's going to go, because we know that could be it for him. That's why, again, I understand saying, offensive line is not going to protect him throughout the whole year. You have to protect yourself. You go and get the offensive line, so that way you say, hey, we did it, we tried. And then you go get insurance, and that's your backup position. You go get your QB2. That way, if something happens, you can try to continue to win. Because if you don't do that, that's what's going to cost you the job. That's what should cost you your job. It should have cost you a long time ago. There's no restructuring Tua. He just signed. I don't think you can restructure him. I don't know why they would.
Yeah, when I mentioned restructuring for Chubb, it's not like hey, we're hitting the clause in your contract to push money back. It's actual like, hey, let's go to the table and cut your salary. Because if you want to stay here, you have to not take the same amount of money before. It's you take less money or we're cutting you.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you guys very quick, because we are, there's a lot going on here for Miami that, they still believe, obviously, if they're on the hot seat and they're riding on to, hey, this is your chance, this is it, Tyreek, he comes back, makes sense. But now that Raheem is gone, Durham Smythe has been cut. I'm sure, oh my goodness, Kendall Fuller. We're talking about Bradley Chubb, but those three guys for sure. How does that impact team needs? You don't have to go specific names, but which players would you say, okay, we're going to, or which positions would you tackle in the draft, and which one would you tackle in free agency? If that makes sense. Corner, tight end, running back. If you had to fill up those holes now that are left for the releases of these guys.
True. I think I'm probably going to try and go into free agency to find a tight end, because with the position that we're looking at, I can get a more bang for my buck with tight ends in free agency. And I can get someone that's a little more polished, someone that's going to probably be a better blocker, and someone that just understands zones at the next level. So tight end will probably be free agency. Cornerback, I have a lot of money wrapped up in the cornerback position already. So I'm probably going to go in the draft for my corner. And unless I can find an amazing deal at running back, I'm probably again looking at the draft and free agency, or sorry, in the draft for running back, so I can just keep developing these young guys. As the next contract comes up, I have another young guy coming up to take over his spot because I feel like that's kind of how you have to treat this running back position, especially after Saquon got his contract, Derrick Henry got his contract. These are substantial contracts coming back to the running back position. So you have to start building that carousel of running backs that you're developing.
Right on, Coach.
Remind me what the question was. I got sidetracked by all the comments.
You're good, brother. Yeah, I saw that. No, just with the releases now of Raheem, Durham Smythe, and Fuller with corner, tight end, running back. Which positions would you, and you don't have to give specific names, but what positions would you tackle in free agency and in the draft? Like, would you go corner in the draft and then running back in free agency, or would you go you know what I'm saying?
I do think they go like Josh said. I do think they'll try and get a tight end in free agency. I don't know what the status of Mark Andrews is in Baltimore, but Baltimore was very, very unhappy with him.
That'd be nice.
I would gladly take Mark Andrews in a heartbeat to help out with that. I do think they go O-line in the draft. I do think they get I do think they'll go tight end in the draft, but in the later
I
rounds.
agree. I was actually going to follow up with that.
Yeah,
that number 2 spot probably is going to come from free agency.
Yeah, and then back up from there.
Yeah,
and like we've stated, the tight ends that we've done film on. I mean, outside of what one guy will probably go in the first round, and then you've got 2 or 3 other guys that we have looked at film that we really love. But I do, I think O-line, D-line, you've got to go in the draft and get younger there. I like the center. I can't think. It's center. I do like Patrick Paul a lot, even though I wasn't as high on him as I should have been last year. I don't know what film I watched, but I wasn't very impressed. But yeah, I definitely, and then I definitely think that you've got to go for QB2. You've got to have a young guy who is smart, kind of can read defenses, and
so. I'm glad you brought that up, Coach. We'll move right along here. I know you're short on time, but I wanted to, now that you said that, talking about QB2, you've been putting in some work. You've been hitting the film. And so let's go on with the player spotlight. And you just got a chance to take a look at the Indiana quarterback, Kurtis Rourke. Yeah, man. So talk to me about Kurtis Rourke and what you thought about him, and could you see him as a fit in Miami?
When we talk about Kurtis Rourke, the thing that impresses me most is that he was the quarterback for Ohio University, but then he was brought to Indiana University, who was, I think at the time, one of the worst, if not the worst, college football team in the BCS teams. And so he has solid athleticism, ability to extend plays. He isn't necessarily a dual threat quarterback, but he can move around in the pocket, outside the pocket. He can make plays when he needs to. 6'5", 230, not necessarily a burner, but more of a functional runner. He's got good size and frame, making him tough to bring down in the pocket. Agility shows shiftiness to maneuver in tight spaces, but isn't overly elusive in the open field. Arm strength and mechanics, more of a pocket passer with good zip on his throws. His mechanic allow him to get the ball out quickly. He battled through injury at Ohio. I think he had an ACL injury at Ohio, and then played through. So the one big negative then is his medical, because I think he had an ACL injury at IU too that he got cleaned up after the season. Leadership though. Multi-year starter at Ohio, came to Indiana, turned Indiana into a tournament team for the they haven't done much in the postseason since 2015 was their last chance. Steadily improved each year, refining his mechanics and decision making. Shows commitment to growth. He delivered big moments in many games that he played. At Indiana, he faced numerous Big Ten stout defenses. He helped elevate Indiana from one of the worst teams in the BCS era to a BCS tournament team, playing in the first ever BCS tournament game against Notre Dame, taking IU to the first postseason since 2015. He has high football IQ, pre-snap reads, pocket awareness, efficient release. He has a very fast release time, 2.56 seconds, which I know is kind of a big thing in McDaniel's offense. He's extremely coachable. He has big game composure, stays poised under pressure, makes smart reads, and doesn't panic when facing a pass rush. Ability to execute in crucial moments makes him a reliable leader on the field. To sum up his strengths, makes quick, smart decisions with the football, reads defenses well pre-snap and adjusts accordingly, can go through full field progressions, not just when read throws. He does not turn the ball over. He's very when he gets in trouble, he's good at throwing the ball away to where nobody has an opportunity. He doesn't take bad sacks from what I saw. His pocket presence and mobility, experience and leadership. He's smart, accurate, and poised quarterback with the ability to process information quickly and deliver the ball efficiently. While he isn't an elite runner, his pocket awareness and ability to extend plays make him effective under pressure. His combination of experience, leadership, and arm talent makes him a solid quarterback, particularly in a system that values decision-making and precision passing. Who does that sound like? And then, weaknesses, he's not an elite dual-threat quarterback, lacks elite speed. The injury history is the biggest thing, the ACL injury in 22, and I believe a similar injury in 24, which I had similar concerns with Michael Penix last year, but I feel like that's something that he can move on from. He's moved on from it once. I think if he has surgery on it, and if he starts out as a backup, that he'll be able to get his knee back into prime time position. And then projection, I project him as a day 2 draft pick with skill set to develop into a starting caliber quarterback. If he gets picked with a team that is able to develop quarterbacks, his intelligence, toughness, and ability to read and dissect defenses make him an attractive option for teams needing a solid backup quarterback that can possibly transition to a starting quarterback. While he may struggle initially with complex NFL defenses, I believe his football IQ and work ethic should help him develop into a reliable backup or eventually an NFL starter.
There you go. First off, appreciate you, Coach, and all that you do, my man. I'll tell you everything you said is kind of on the money. I see him as a day 2 guy too. 6'5", that's what I like about him. His size, 6'5", 223. Yeah. Especially when you think about what you need to do. Now, again, the way the league's kind of going, he is not he's not your guy. He's not, like you were saying, he's not that dual threat type of QB. Right. He's a pocket. He seems like a traditional pocket passer.
Yep.
Very smart. You brought up the football IQ. He the timing right where he knows where to throw the ball. Right ahead of the receiver. There's some things there. I think you bring up a good point though. The one thing that's a big red flag is the medical with him, especially when you have medical issues with your QB1. You really that kind of flags you on QB2. Now, of course, this is ACL. How much of it, I don't know what the history is. How long is that continuing? Do we know how many ACL injuries he's had? Is it just that main one?
The one was in 2022. He had some kind of injury to his knee, but played the entire year with a knee brace on. And I didn't know he was hurt until the end of the season when I was Manzano says his comparison would be Matt Schaub.
There you go.
I feel like everything you just said, I was like, yeah, I'm all in on this guy. Like, I don't see a flaw. And then you said comparison to Matt Shaw, but
That's what Anthony Manzano said. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I think it's a different quarterback that was super good that came out of the MAC. But
I thought you were saying that.
No, I'm not saying that was his comparison. No.
What would your comparison be?
Well, from the film that I watched and the film that I watched on this other quarterback that came out of the MAC, he's got a similar style, although he's not as off schedule as Roethlisberger was, but he played like Roethlisberger played at Miami. Not saying that he's going to be what the Steelers had in Roethlisberger, but that's how he played at Miami. How Roethlisberger played it. I mean, he played at Ohio. How Roethlisberger played at Miami. So and kind of the similar size. I think the difference is that Roethlisberger was 10 pounds heavier.
I like to play devil's advocate, so not going against anything that you said. But from what I heard, he very well could jump into the first round because size, like intelligent, takes care of the football. A lot of that tells me like he could jump up into the first round. But you have him as a day 2 guy. You and Bobby are very similar in grade, which love seeing. What do you think if he, like this offseason, the players in this process always have one thing that they have to focus on? What do you think skill-wise is the one thing he has to focus on, and what is deterring him from being just, in your opinion, a round 1 grade guy?
I think some of his mid. I felt like his mid-range game could do a little bit better, and I would like to see that improve. He had some damn near beautiful throws from like the 36 and dropped a dime into the back corner of the end zone for a touchdown. And he came back. And so one of the questions that I was going to kind of bring to the table is you take a kid like this that went to IU, who is a team that nobody saw producing this year, and completely now, granted there's coaching, but he was playing with kids that were from like James Madison. Like he wasn't playing with receivers and stuff that got drafted by Georgia. Like this is a group that, and so to me that means more. To me, Sanders playing at Colorado means more than a guy that would transfer from Georgia to Miami or from, Alabama to Notre Dame or whatever. Like I think it says something for guys to transfer into programs that weren't the best. But I mean, I think he's got a huge upside. I mean, he took Indiana to the tournament, which to me is huge. So I think there's a huge upside. I think he's extremely coachable. I think a lot of it though, Josh, is just that he, people may knock him because he played in the MAC. Which, I think the thing that makes him different than Roethlisberger is I think Roethlisberger did a lot more on the run and creating, those Favre type plays, where he is just a traditional, a more of a traditional pocket passer that we enjoy seeing. So
I always like seeing these big guys because while you were talking, I'm like, oh man, could he be a lot like Nick Foles coming out of Arizona?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to watch him.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you pointed out about the grades, because I didn't pay attention until you just said I had to go look at it. And so we're very close on the grade.
Very close.
Yeah. So first off, I'm a size guy. I think you could. I'm not a guy where it's like,
we heard about that earlier.
Yeah, that's right. Stay away from the snow, 2 inches. But no, I mean, again, you ask, could he possibly move up into the first round? I mean, it really depends on what he does in this scouting. We all know that players that shouldn't be in the first round are going to get pushed into the first round. That's why, to me, in this draft, you could get a really good developmental or good upside type of QB in the second, third, fourth round. there's a lot of those guys here, and Kurtis Rourke is one of those guys. I liked what I saw from him. Again, one thing that jumped out to me is the ball placement, right? Where you got these guys where they have to kind of turn around and reach this way to catch the ball, when the ball should be right here. That's what he does. It's a very intelligent QB back there. And what you see on Indiana, what Coach was talking about with not much of a dual threat quarterback. Again, I don't know how that offensive line was, but again, that his pocket awareness, now he could make guys miss. You did see that where when the pocket broke down, he was able to move out of the way and get it out. I had to go back and look, but Coach, I don't know if you've seen this or not. Again, this is not the first time we'll watch this guy. We'll watch him more throughout the offseason. We'll see the scouting combine, but at Ohio, I was just reading. I want to go look this up. I didn't see it. I only saw Indiana, but at Ohio, he showed off. It says it here. He showed off some dual threat ability. He had 1,200 yards rushing, and he had 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he can move. He can move. He prefers to be in the pocket and throw.
But
first.
That's not bad though.
No,
right?
not at all.
And that's maybe where that I'm not huge into comparisons. Now you could say style of player, not comparison in regards of he's going to be this guy. But I like the style of player you're talking about when you say Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger could stand there and throw a pass and get hit and do it, but also he could go and move and make a play, extend a play, so I could see that type of style of player here. This is a guy, again, we've brought him up in the war room before when we're talking about mock drafts, that later in the draft, if he's available there, you can make this move and feel okay with it. Now, the only concern is, as Coach has brought up, is the injury concerns with the ACL. How does that impact him going into, as a backup? Is it that much of a concern where you go, no, you can let him play there and whatever? Again, the main issue would be the offensive line. Right. And then let me just say shout out to Manzano. I've seen your Bobby. Is that your wife?
Is that what your wife says?
No, yeah, no. No, I didn't see that. No, sir. No, sir.
Speaking to your
or the 13-inch. No, I'm sorry.
Speaking to the ball placement side of this, that's one of the reasons when we were evaluating Bryce Young in the process, I was like, I'm not a big fan of his because he puts the ball in situations where his receivers can get hurt. Yeah. You watched a lot of his ball placements, and it showed because as he was playing with players, a lot of players were getting hurt in the process as well. So ball placement is huge. You hear Tom Brady talk about that as well, where when receivers get hurt, he blames the quarterback because you're not putting the ball in the correct spot for these players to be protected. You have to protect your players. And when it comes, like these receivers look at that. So I've always said it's going to be hard for Carolina to get really good receivers in free agency and all of that. They're going to have to either draft them or trade for them because Bryce Young does not put the ball in a very good location. And it's hard to adjust that. Accuracy, and I think it's an accuracy issue. But it's good to see that he does put the ball in good spots because that just opens up so much more when your quarterback does that.
So let's go on to position spotlight. And obviously we've been hinting at this throughout the whole show, and we'll be hinting through this throughout the entire offseason. And this is Coach's bread and butter. But Wingate will take the lead, and Coach, you can follow up, and we'll run into the war room. And the war room today will be more just discussing again team needs, and then we'll wrap up. And let me just say, Anthony, I've seen your messages, and what I told you was later throughout the season with the show, we'll start opening it up the line so people could come on in and talk and give their 2 points. Right now we're short on time today, so we're gonna get through the show. But don't worry, and I appreciate everyone who's watching right now. We got almost 100 people tuning in. That's from YouTube, Twitter, X, Facebook, all that. Appreciate you all watching. You're watching On the Clock, the Miami Dolphins weekly draft show here on FTSN with Coach Wingate and myself. We're here every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you all watching. And Manzano, don't worry, brother. We'll get you in there. Scotty, Daniel, all of the above. Cap, I can't wait to get you guys in here. Just get your 2 points. Steve of Real Talk, Fids Talk. I'd love to get him in here because it's great to get other people's perspectives, not just on players, but just on the team. Like, hey, man, I would love for us to go get this guy. But let's go talk
Yeah.
about position spotlight. And Josh, man, just I know you've been working on offensive line in the film room.
Yeah.
You're just, yeah, man, break it to us, break it down.
Bobby, I'm going to drop out real quick since
Go ahead,
we're
brother.
in a transition spot. I appreciate you guys. I apologize. I can't be
Go
on
ahead,
the whole
brother.
time
No,
today.
you're good. So yeah, you said that's Coach Vogel's position. That's my position too. I love getting into these offensive linemen. I feel like I do a fairly good job in evaluating them. So I'm deep into the guards. So what I've seen so far within that guard position is there's a lot of talent in this draft. I think when we're looking at these guys, there might be some players later on in the draft that have some really good assets to them as far as they can develop fairly easily. I'm looking at a guy like Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia who played 1 year at college. I have him. I think what was my grade on him? I think I have him as a Dylan Fairchild. I think I have a 3rd round grade on him. But you watch him and you see that with a little bit of NFL coaching and a little bit of actual experience, this guy can become a star in the NFL. He could be someone that I'm not going to say a star. Let's backpedal that a little bit. But I think he could be someone that could be a long-time starter on an offensive line and really provide longevity on that offensive line at left guard, because I think he is someone that, again, experience is lacking. He makes some leverage issues when you watch him, but overall you see him when he does play with technique and when he does get off the ball well, you see someone that can really execute at the guard position and really do a really good job. I don't know if I necessarily saw him give up a sack. I'm sure he did, but I do know that he gave up a couple pressures. But again, when he plays within his technique, he does a really, really good job. And another guy that I watched as well, Tyler Booker, one of the top offensive guards in this draft. He just looks like an Alabama offensive lineman.
Monster.
Big body. He is just so smooth, plays with powerful hands. He's quick. The only thing I see with him is that he just struggles playing outside of the phone booth. When you ask him to go on a screen or when you ask him to pull, he doesn't necessarily do that fairly well. But when you ask him to play within that phone booth, he's all pro. And the phone booth is just like that guard position where you have the center and the tackle next to you. I think he's going to be a long-time starter. He's probably a Pro Bowler at the next level. So, yeah, love the comment there. Bobby loves powerful hands. But I see a lot of talent in the guard position, which is going to be great for Miami going forward. I'm diving deeper into these positions. But overall, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing with these guards and with these tackles. I think this is just going to be a really good draft to pick someone later because, like I said, I think Fairchild's going to be there day 2 that you could go get him, and he's going to be quickly acclimated into the NFL.
So I'm going to tell you, so I got a chance to, obviously, I was very excited to look at Tate Ratledge, who you had that first round grade on.
Yeah,
and again, really, really, really good player. I really enjoyed watching him. I got an early second, late first on him, after I watched him. But Dylan Fairchild caught my eye a lot.
Yeah.
And I really liked what I saw from him. And this is the thing about the offensive line. And I know this, for if Miami's serious about addressing their offensive line and adding depth and adding quality players, this is the draft to do it. There's a lot of sneaky good guys in here
Yeah.
that, again, like you said, Dylan Fairchild, I got a third round grade on him. I think you do
Yeah,
too.
we're very similar. I think
Okay.
we're like 4.04 points off on him.
Okay. So, I mean, but to me, it's not like, oh, he's third round, he's not. No, I liked what I saw from him. He could be a contributor year one. You could plug him in, and he's not going to be, this, and that's my thing. Like, I know I just saw Daniel's comments, and forgive me, guys. I'm on it. I'm in and out of the comments. I'm trying to make sure I keep up with them. But Daniel was such I'm not going with 13 on a guard. And this is what's great about this draft. You really don't have to. You could, and I get the point too with getting a tackle who can transition. I'm all about versatility. I want a guy who can play multiple spots. I'm not against going for a guy who just plays really just one position, but I would prefer versatility because you really need that, especially now this day and age of football. However, you could go 13, get BPA, whatever BPA is, best player available at 13. I guess it's going into the war room, and let me just switch that because we are talking offensive line, but we'll just switch it to war room. So talking about that, you could go best player available, whether that is safety, receiver, tackle, running back, whatever, tight end, and then second, third round, go get your offensive lineman, and you're going to get some quality guys. Now, with Booker, I'm with you, smooth as hell, size. Yeah. That dude is going to be the dude for a while, and Tate Ratledge and Tyler Booker, those are offensive lineman names, so they're going to be good. That just sometimes names just fit. Yeah. I'll just say that.
So I'll say this about Fairchild. I think Fairchild and Tate Ratledge are very similar in play. I think Ratledge is more intelligent, which shows up on film. I said the reason I fell in love with Ratledge is his ability to pick up stunts. He was unreal in when players were crossing on the defensive line, just picking them up, passing them off. That's not something you see on an offensive lineman. He never gave up a sack in college. Things like that. He's just someone that play in and play out. He's there. He produces. He reminds me a lot of like a Zach Martin type player.
Okay.
Fairchild isn't far off. I think the big thing is Ratledge has the experience and has played longer than Fairchild. I think if you give Fairchild the experience, again, day one, you draft him, he has to play. He's not going to get better without snaps and experience because you see him as the game goes on, he's getting better. He's playing better. So you really need to get Fairchild that experience. I think he could very well in the draft go day two, early day two, because he is a really good player. And me personally, I think Ratledge is a better player than Booker. But if you argue, like the same thing I said last year of, if you argue that, Jalen, who's the Washington quarterback?
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels. If you argue with me, Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than Caleb Williams, I'm not going to fight you on that. Same thing. If you argue with me that Booker is a better guard than Ratledge, I'm not going to argue on that either. To answer Anthony's question, as far as like tight ends transitioning to guard, I think there are some true guards in this draft. We're talking about them right now. Ratledge, Booker, Fairchild. I think a lot of times we're looking at the top heavy. The issue is going to be more so there's no true tackles, because a lot of people are transitioning them into guards.
And I will say, I agree with Anthony with his response right there with Malachi Starks. Anthony asks, why would the safety position is loaded in the draft? Why would a team move up? If a team believes in the player more than the position, they're going to move up. Even if they need a safety, but they're like, man, I cannot miss on this guy. We need to go up and get him. It could happen. Scotty, I'm with you too in regards of and I've said this before. I don't sleep on any position at 13 other than for Miami, other than QB, kicker, and punter. Everything else is on the board. But I could see Miami moving back. I could see it happening.
When you look back at the draft years from now, you're not going to look at the position. You're just going to look if that player is a star for your team.
100%.
And I mean, very well draft Zach Martin. You can draft anybody wherever, and you're going to look back at it. And if they're all pro for you, oh, I'm so happy we got that player there. We knew more than the next person because no one would have drafted them there. So yeah, I just draft good players, honestly.
Absolutely, 100%. Again, and that's the point. If there's a guy sitting there, and I don't care what his position is, if he is that freaking good, if you're watching him and you're like, dude, this kid is going to be special, but we can't take him because we don't need a tight end, or we don't need a running back, or we don't need this right now. We can get those guys later. No, you're not going to get that guy later. You might get a running back later, but you're not going to get that guy later.
Yeah, we talked about drafting
That's what
players.
BPA is. BPA is ignoring the position, and it's getting the best player there.
And we talked about it last year as far as like everyone was saying Braden Fisk is this third, second round guy. And we were just constantly saying, I don't care. I know this guy is going to be a star. If I have a first round pick, I'm taking him because I'm not going into the second round hoping that someone doesn't take him. I want him on my team.
If you love this guy, and like for me, and we again, you said it all last offseason, we kept highlighting Braden Fisk, and for me, if I'm sitting wherever Miami's pick was, I was all about Braden Fisk. If we could have got Braden Fisk, I would have been crazy for the team. I don't care what point in the draft because that's how much I believed in him, and I understand the safety position. It's really good this year. Again, I've talked about it. Castro. There's a lot of guys out there that I'm okay with getting in the draft. Xavier Watts. There's a few of them there, other than Malachi Starks. But again, if a team falls in love with the player, like we did with Braden Fisk, you have that pick, even though you had, you didn't have Calais Campbell at that point. But if you had, you had Zach Saylor, you didn't know what was going on with Christian Wilkins. Imagine pairing Braden Fisk with Zach Steeler. Now, again, love chop, but all I'm saying is if you love the player, I don't care what it is, you go get him. Scotty says exactly. At the time of the draft, all the experts hated the Lions picks. They had said all of those guys, they could have drafted those guys. They drafted those guys around early, but I love the draft and look at the results. Yeah. Go get your guy. Don't look at the position. You go get the right, especially if it's BPA, at that first pick.
And I'll say to the safety position being loaded and Malachi Starks being this generational safety, I promise you he's going to fall in the draft.
Yeah, and again, tell them why you
well, it's not that. Even just Georgia fan looking at them. I just promise you because safeties do not get valued in the NFL as we expect.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about in regards of I'm not saying that Malachi Starks is one or the other. I know a lot of people are high on him. I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of him yet, too much to make a call on him. What I'm saying is that
I know Anthony said that.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yep. Anthony may have watched him, and everyone has a right to what they believe.
For sure.
But what I'm saying, and I think you and I are on the same page, is again, you've seen more of him to have your call, and I trust your call. But what I'm saying is too, but if the team believes in the player, let's say like Miami's sitting at 13 and whatever team might need a safety. I don't know what teams that we're talked about, but if they really believe that Malachi Starks is that guy that they can't live without, then a team would trade up no matter how loaded a draft may be at that position because they believe in that guy. Go get your guy. And teams have shown that, so, we'll ride with that. Were you guys, Wingate and Bobby, would you guys be shocked if Miami at 13, based on potential like they did, would get Shamir Stewart from Texas A&M? Again, I haven't seen anything on Shamir Stewart to judge on him yet. I'm almost done with offensive guards, and we'll move to centers. I think that's the next thing. I don't know if they're all lined up, but and then we'll get into D tackles and an edge and all this whatnot. Again, I don't sleep on any position in the draft other than QB, position, punter, and kicker at 13. Everyone else is on the table, or every other position is on the table.
And I don't think was that saying that Chop was a potential draft, like a potential player that was drafted, as far as like he has potential. He's not a player right now that can produce, because I don't think that was seen in the draft. I think If you looked at Chop, he was one of the best pass rushers in
He
this
was
draft.
technique. Yeah, absolutely. To me, I mean, I think a lot of people didn't see it. You know, a lot of people were looking at the numbers and not looking at the player.
Yeah.
And you know, because I saw a lot of people were saying, "Oh, but look at him! Look, he didn't do anything at Penn State. Look at him!" And it's like,
True.
dude,
He was
don't look
beating
at
players in seconds.
watch the tape, watch the film, you know, and it was a long range pick, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like you brought up, you know, hey, what's going to happen with Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, all these guys, you know, we need to make a move here because maybe these guys won't be here. They did it, and look how it benefited them. Those guys got hurt. You still had those guys. For me, when I always said it, we both said it. His film did not match his statistics.
No.
Put on the film and see what he can do. And that's the thing when you look at it. Look at the production. You could look at the production. That matters. But then put on the film. And sometimes the film doesn't match the production. And then you saw what that did this season. And think about the potential long-term now with him as he goes into his second year. We could have had Panay Soul, but we wanted that Alabama connection. Philly has the real Alabama connection. We got Soul the Lemon. Yeah, I know. But now it's time to look ahead. You know, let's make it right.
I wasn't a big Penei Sewell guy coming out because if you look at the NFL draft, like the value draft or where you take players, like looking at that, I felt like Penei Sewell was being overvalued as just a right tackle. But with my theory, looking back, he was drafted to be the left tackle. Like that was what he was drafted for. But again, you look back at that draft. Are the Lions upset with where they took Penei Sewell? He's a right tackle for them, which is a lesser valued position at the next level. But they look back at that draft and they're like, so happy we got Penei Sewell, one of the best tackles in the in the NFL. I don't care that he doesn't play left tackle. I just care that he's an all-pro for us moving forward.
And that's right. I mean, again, and obviously Manzano likes Shamir Stewart. I haven't seen anything on Shamir Stewart with Miami connection, but I can't judge it because I don't know it. Again, I don't know if Miami would take. I don't know. I can't talk on that right now. I don't think we can until we see him. Because again, if he pops up on film, pops out, you know. What would you guys give up for Jalen Carter? Because apparently the Eagles are looking to trade him.
Not what he's valued at.
There you go.
I think he's a cancer type player. I think there's a reason why the Eagles are trying to trade him. He doesn't give his all the time. I think he's a head case. I wasn't a big fan of his coming out because of the reasons of him not giving a full effort. I like Braden Fifth type defensive lineman compared to someone that has all the talent in the world but doesn't give their all every time.
Don't you dare come in here, Russ, you damn troublemaker, you Jets fan, and start putting that bad mojo over here.
I want Miami to go out and get Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I think that is my guy that I want to see because it's a perfect person to help develop Tua, but also the perfect person to push Tua.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that would be better. But no. Russ is trying to start the fire here. You know damn well what he's trying to do. And I'm just glad I don't see DSG. DSG is probably still in here, but DSG is an Aaron Rodgers follower in regard to sending him to the Dolphins. I do not want that at all. Please keep it
also speaking to Jalen Carter.
One Dolphins fan. One.
I don't think.
I hope.
I don't think Miami's going to value Jalen Carter. I don't think he fits the scheme very well.
Yeah, and I don't think Miami's looking to trade any picks right now. I saw Max Crosby earlier. Love Max Crosby. Would not hate him. I think he's an unbelievable player. But I am not a fan of trading any picks right now. You need him what you can get. Get what you can get. Miami's really selling, and obviously Miami's cutting players as they go. You know, and maybe selling players so they get more draft capital. I cannot see Miami making any type of trade. And especially if you're having issues right now with your star player, the best player in your team, in regards to quote unquote Tyreek Hill, and people are calling him a cancer and everything else that's going on there. Why the hell would they go get Carter at that point?
Yeah, and I
And
think
I am
it's just
go ahead. Good.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying I don't think he's like that scheme fit. He's a true three technique. This defense is going to use more of a one, five techniques on the outside that have some pass rush ability. I look at this defensive scheme a lot like the Wade Phillips scheme. Maybe you can play him at the nose tackle, but I think he doesn't play the run like you would want him to in that position. So I would just, I don't think Miami's even considering Jalen Carter for their scheme.
Yeah, I can't see it. I don't see. To me, Miami is just looking. Oh, there it is. There it is. He's there. Gosh, got to start that crap. No. Um, I would trade a 7th round pick for Pratt. Is that the linebacker from Cincinnati? I think I've seen a couple times. Dart first. Oh, um, Dart first round pick. Thoughts? I think back half of the first. I see the noise. I've seen the noise about that. That he could possibly move in the first. I think a lot of these guys might have the potential, but I think a lot of guys that you see, people are saying, "Oh, this is gonna be a 1st round pick, gonna be a 1st round pick." You're gonna see them fall. You know, this is a top 15 pick. You're gonna see them fall. So Dart could do it again if he continued. He had a good Senior Bowl. If he has a strong scouting combine and pro day and whatever, maybe. If he's a Jet, he'll fail. Let's just be real. If he goes to the New York Jets, he'll have a terrible career. He'll probably get injured day one, or just throw a bunch of picks or have a butt fumble like Mark Sanchez. You know, 2 AFC championships, woohoo, whatever. I'm just messing with you, Russ. I'm not though. Jets suck. But anyway, Sea Devil, what's up, my man? Bobby accused me of being Aaron Rodgers and using a. Yeah, you guys. But anyway, but yeah, again, 111 people tuning in. We appreciate you all watching live right now on the clock. Miami Dolphins Weekly Draft Show. Coach had to drop out. Coach had some other duties there. But we'll have next week. We'll have the War Room, the natural War Room. We'll go. We'll do our mock draft. We'll talk about potential trades. We'll talk about potential players with team needs. Obviously, we'll continue with our Dolphins news, player spotlight, position spotlight. And eventually we will, for those who want to, like I know Anthony, and Anthony, we appreciate you always. We will open up the link and get some people to hop in and just give their thoughts, not just on the draft, but on the Dolphins and what's to come. But yeah, we are in the middle of the offensive line. It's different with offensive line because it's not once, you have to like make sure the player's playing that game and got to find the right film and everything else. So for me, it's a little bit harder. I just got to get through it. What's up, Kenna? But anywho, I think, Scotty says, I think 4 quarterbacks go in the 1st round, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Milroe, and Dart. Okay, so that's his reason. Teams that want that 5th-year option might push quarterbacks to do it. And you know what? That's a perfect scenario for teams that don't need to draft a quarterback in round 1 because that's going to push a lot of good players down. So no problem. That's a great question, Sea Devil. Is Rodgers an upgrade over Tua? And I'll let other people answer that. But Josh, before we wrap it up, brother, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited for this year. I do want to speak to that 4 quarterbacks. I think, and I haven't watched these players yet, but free agency is going to be the big call on where these, on what the NFL sees of these draftable quarterbacks. Because if we start to see Tennessee go out and get a quarterback, we start to see, let's say, New York go out and get a quarterback. There's reasons behind that. They're not behind Ward or Sanders or whomever these top guys are. So we can start to see like that draft where Kenny Pickett went early, but they went later in the draft. So we could start to see that process. But no, I'm excited to see how free agency works, what Miami does in there, because truly we're coming up on that time where free agency is about to happen.
Yep.
So
about a month away now, I think, right?
Yeah, it's very close. We got the combine around the corner.
Yep.
So it's a lot is about to happen. We're going to be getting into this deeper. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this year pans out.
100%. Kenna, appreciate you watching, brother. Do you think the running back from Boise State, Ashton Genty, will be there at 13? He
Yes.
could be. He could be. And you know what? Again, don't sleep on. I would not sleep on any position other than QB, punter, and kicker for Miami. I will say that.
I would not sleep on him being available in the second round.
Ooh. Running back is an iffy thing. Running back is you know, it you know, depends. But yeah, so we'll just get to it. But anyway, guys, we appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all. We'll be back next Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern for more draft talk. NFL, Miami Dolphins, all of the above. We appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe and enjoy your Sunday and your holiday tomorrow. If you're off, enjoy it. I know you're not. I am though. Peace.